Okay, guys, so this is the big one. This was the thing that we've all been concerned about, government intervention. So the headlines on the Times newspaper today, Sunak eyes more help to buy. So I've been able to find an online version of this behind the paywall to read you guys. We're going to take a look at what they are talking about and also why I actually think this isn't going to impact things this time around. Despite the fact government intervention is probably the one thing that could alter the course of this crash, I don't think this is going to be the one that does. So make sure you stick around for that. So here we go. Sunak puts help to buy back on the table. PM eyes first-time buyer boost as Labour pledges 300,000 properties a year. So let's scroll down. There's only a few paragraphs to read here. Rishi Sunak is drawing up plans to boost support for first-time home buyers as a key plank of the Conservatives' campaign for a fifth term in office. Officials in Downing Street and the Treasury are looking at proposals to help thousands of renters who have been unable to get on the housing ladder in the face of high prices and rising interest rates. The move was discussed before the spring budget, so this was something they were actively thinking about before the spring budget that we were concerned about at the time, but was not taken forward amid fears it would prove inflationary. Yeah, shock horror. Three government sources said a new buyer's support scheme was back on the table and could form part of Jeremy Hunt's autumn statement. So we may hear something about it later this year. We cannot go into the next election without an offer for first-time buyers, one minister said. We all know that homeowners are more likely to vote Conservative and we cede ground to this. To Labour, and in red here, I've highlighted it in red because it's Labour. Labour pledges more support for first-time buyers yesterday and announced plans to revive targets to ensure that the private sector would build at least 300,000 homes a year. Sir Keir Starmer said he wanted to make Labour the party of home ownership and that the dream for too many people had been killed by the Prime Minister, who had given in to Tory MPs who forced the scrapping of mandatory local house building targets. Now, I think that's a bit strong, just saying that it's the Tory MPs responsible for killing the dreams of home ownership, as a good chunk of the current misalignment between house prices and people being able to afford them started under the Labour Party. So both parties are guilty in this. So pointing fingers is completely pointless in my eyes. They are both as bad as each other. So what does this mean? Will there be a new help to buy scheme? Well, potentially, yes. That could come, especially as we're hearing from the home builders at the moment, how much they are struggling and how much they're going to rein in building homes. So it's quite possible that both the Tories and the Labour are being lobbied by big home builders. So they're saying they're doing this for first-time buyers, but in reality, it's probably they are being lobbied by their donors saying, look, we need more public money to fund buying out overpriced rubbish houses, effectively. So this is what these schemes generally do, despite the fact they're marketed as support for first-time buyers. So with both the Tories and Labour pledging to do something for first-time buyers, help to buy is probably the most likely thing from the Conservatives, and Labour are talking about a mortgage guarantee scheme, which is kind of strange because a government mortgage guarantee scheme already exists. But as they've got here, the Labour Party housing spokesman Lisa Nandy has promoted plans for a mortgage guarantee scheme similar to Help to Buy. So whether you call it a mortgage guarantee scheme, whether you call it something else, in all intents and purposes, is pretty much going to do the same thing. It's going to help keep the Ponzi scheme alive, isn't it? It's going to keep providing liquidity at the bottom end of the market where really things need to correct, but instead they keep propping it up. So why am I not worried about this? These new schemes, why am I not worried that this is going to alter the direction of the house price crash? Well, the first thing is going to come too late. The Tories are talking about this for the next election. Labour are talking about this for the next election. The next election is going to be next year. And regardless of who wins that, they're not going to implement these policies straight away. So we're probably a good 18 months to 2 years out before we start to see any of these schemes. Now, Jeremy Hunt may announce something in the autumn budget, but I would be very, very surprised if that comes into action straight away, or maybe even to action next spring at the earliest. But I cannot see him announcing something in autumn that kicks in straight away, just purely because of the inflation risk, which is the reason why they said they didn't do it in spring. And I can't see inflation being under full control by the time we get to the autumn. But say he does announce it in autumn, even then, I don't think it's going to change things too much. And the reason being as this is only the bottom end of the market. It's not going to change the problem for the middle of the market and the top end of the market, which is the cost of borrowing. It's just so much higher. 2 to 3 times interest rates are going to be higher than they have been for the past 5 years or so. So you might provide some support at the bottom, but you're not going to fix the middle or the top with this particular policy. And also, if by some miracle they do announce something in autumn that comes out in the autumn, the crash is happening now. We are probably 6 months away from any new policy at the very earliest, but realistically probably a year or so. And the crash is happening now. You know, we've got nationwide that have shown house prices down for 7 months in a row. We're seeing the official land registry figures have turned negative for at least 3 months in a row as well. So they're heading down. And we're seeing that supply of listings is heading up as well. So this crash is taking place as I make this video. The crash is taking place. There are so many reductions on Rightmove. All of the data is still lagging, but when that catches up, we're going to see that spring and summer of 2023 is when things really started to get the ball rolling with this crash. So as much as I disagree with these schemes that are designed to help first-time buyers, although I want to help first-time buyers personally, the schemes that they've introduced just go about things the wrong way, and the housing market needs to correct. That's the best thing that could happen for first-time buyers. So despite the fact I don't like these schemes and would prefer them not to have these schemes, if they do come back, I'm not overly concerned they're going to save the housing market. Even if they do come in and save, well, not save, but provide support for the big home builders, and they do help out some first-time buyers a lot, the overall housing market is going to face big problems all the time. That this scheme, this Ponzi scheme that has been built on cheap debt, is facing expensive debt. And until the cost of debt comes down, I don't see this crash going anywhere, and the house prices are only going to go in one direction. Now, if you've heard some news recently that has given you the impression that everything is fine in the housing market, I'm going to pop up a video in front of me now that talks you through why exactly this crash is far from over, and I'll see you guys over there.